Hey, this is Andrew from Bakersfield. Welcome to Huell's Gold.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 55 of Huell's Gold. I'm Chris.
I'm Allan.
And here we go with the important places of California. Everywhere before, unimportant apparently.
Just important places.
Yeah.
They're not the most important places.
Well, I think that's what's it like. Well, I guess in the cold open where Huell is at the Pueblo De Los Angeles, he's saying that there are forgotten places that are important. So maybe...
That's true. And also, I mean, importance is a very fluid concept. So we can have relative importance.
Forgotten places would have been.
Yeah. But I mean, there's certain places in Bakersfield that are important to us that people could care less about.
Well, yeah, like even if you want to dive even deeper, there's all kinds of skate spots in Bakersfield for you that
Oh boy.
mean so much to you that like you know, you
It's
take
true.
Kathleen to them sometimes and she's like, "Wow, that's cool. I finally see it." But then like if it was anyone else, you'd just be like, "It's just a staircase. I don't care."
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but yeah.
Well, this is going to be tangent filled, I'm sure, like we always do. So the important places this week, it's funny that he's in El Pueblo de Los Angeles. It's right near Olvera Street. It's the birthplace of Los Angeles. And he's just using it as the intro to this episode. And I looked into it, and that place has like 15 historical buildings that are on registries and all this stuff. And like he could have done 50 episodes on that one block of Los Angeles. And maybe that's in visiting. I don't know.
Possibly. But it's just the first 30 seconds of this episode.
Yeah. Then he's just boning out. But before we go there, we kind of get a glimpse of where or what the subject matter is for our first important place with the theme this week that you heard that is not California's Gold as far as I can tell.
No.
I don't know what the song is, but I did have to look up what this instrument was called.
Well, what is it? What do
Well,
we got?
I thought it was a koto, but that's a Japanese instrument. It's actually called a dantron.
A Dontron?
Or Dan Tran. I've heard different pronunciations. Dantranh.
Oh.
Because it's a Vietnamese instrument because of the subject matter we're getting into. We'll let Huell explain it in a second. But what'd you think of the theme itself?
I thought it was peaceful.
Very, yeah. Just two women sitting in a field in yellow dresses with the yellow California's Gold theme, or not the theme, the title.
Playing their Don Juans, huh?
The Dontrons.
The Dontrons.
So, obviously it has something to do with Vietnam. We kind of talked about it last week, as we always kind of preview. Has to do with Vietnamese refugees, but Huell needs to just tell us, right?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, Huell.
It was a long and controversial war. A war that took place in a faraway little country called Vietnam. And when the war finally ended, there were thousands of refugees, citizens of Vietnam who fled and were given safe haven and a new home in America. It's a little-known bit of American and California history. And to get to the exact spot where it happened, we traveled to a fairly remote part of the huge Marine Corps base at Camp Pendleton. The place is nothing more than a huge empty field these days, but back in 1975, at the end of the Vietnam War, this field was very important because this is the place in America the Vietnamese refugees first landed.
So right off the bat, I wanted to bring, like the first phrase Huell says is, it was a controversial war. To be able to sum up Vietnam like that in one sentence, it really is, it's amazing, pun intended, that like so much could be said. I mean,
Well, this is sort of What are you going to do? He could jump off into a tangent.
Yeah, this isn't Vietnam's gold, so it's not like he's going into that. But it's okay. So a lot of my knowledge that about the Vietnam War comes from that newer Ken Burns documentary that he did. I mean, I've read certain things like more specific, but as far as the overarching kind of war itself comes from that. And these refugees that we're meeting here, there was some wildness going on to get these people out of Vietnam. And to see the people that we're going to be meeting here in a minute, like these were just kids, and I'll say it now, I guess. Everyone who came there were just kids then, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice that there were no, like, adults?
Well, there's only one person was 14.
Yeah.
But they're still a kid.
But no one who was, like, a parent or
true.
anything like that. And I am attributing that to the craziness of how they got out and how these people were, well, they must have been, like, traumatized. I mean, I'm sure the kids were too, but they don't have this, like, as much of a conscious
Well, when you're
memory
saying that it's wild,
okay,
what do you mean by that?
As North Vietnam was essentially winning the war as far as the American occupation or the American involvement was concerned, the taking of Saigon was super quick and like gnarly. And people were very desperate to get out. And the U.S. Embassy was like holed up behind a big wall, and people were just like desperate to get out. They were having to helicopter people off the roof because so many people who were South Vietnamese were afraid that these North Vietnamese communists were going to just come in and kill everyone. Like, it was a really scary situation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that in every spot in all of South Vietnam as North Vietnam kind of took over and essentially won. Because they did win. So
when you were mentioning a lot of the younger kids that got out, did the adults, were they not boning out with them?
What?
Like boning out, like getting out of there.
Well, I'm assuming, because, I mean, even if we see in the footage, once we are like kind of into the swing of things at Camp Pendleton in 75, a lot of the footage that they're playing during the clip you heard and during a lot of this segment, there's a ton of kids there. And I think they probably did the like women and children first kind of cliche thing. Yeah. So I bet a lot of, because also I'm assuming that a lot of the men and women, because there were a lot of women soldiers on both sides as far as Vietnam is concerned, had died in the war. Yeah. Like, I'm sure there were a lot of orphans that were having to deal with this, or like at least people whose fathers had died.
That's something we'll have to look into as well.
Yeah. But
what do we got?
Well, we're in Camp Pendleton still, I guess we should say, right?
Okay. I mean, we're going to talk about this later. I'm sure I have a note here. But we'll just throw this out there. Did this happen before or after
last week's episode?
No. Last week's episode was
it
about
2 weeks
olive
ago?
oil. It was 2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago, yeah. The Quonset huts and hangers. That's what it was.
Huts
2
and
weeks
hangers.
ago.
That's what I was thinking. Huts. I couldn't remember. Yeah, it's the hangers. The Tustin hangers.
Yeah, we're still at Camp Pendleton, and we are basically on the grounds of the camp that you heard about in the clip with old Roger Combs.
So, turns out, not related to Sean Puffy Combs.
You know? I can't come with it. I had no comeback on that. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. It's a no-go there.
Okay. So he is a former Marine press officer. He's kind of like, I guess, giving part of the tour.
I think so.
I mean, there's two guys. There's him, and then there's the soldier who's on hand, who we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And then all of the former refugees. Did you get anything on old Roger?
I did. Got bad news about Raj. I'll call him Raj.
Okay.
Raj.
Before you get into this, I looked into this too.
Okay.
There is like a very highly decorated
Roger
Combs.
Roger E.
Yes.
Combs, who was an attorney general. No, he was a judge.
He's lots of
I
things
forget
like
because I just scanned it, so that's definitely not our Roger.
that. Okay, I wanted to make sure you didn't get sucked into the vortex of Roger E. Combs.
Oh, that's easy because it's the first thing that pops up. Now, yeah, you got to search Camp Pendleton and quotes.
Yeah.
I don't say quotations. Either way.
Either way, you still got some bad news for me?
Yeah, I got bad news for you. So, Super not with us anymore. He seems like a good guy, though. But he died November 27th, 2014.
Okay.
So he got his bachelor's degree. He had a scholarship to MIT, first of all. But somehow they didn't elaborate on this, but he finished his bachelor's degree at Chapman.
Oh.
Actually, he started with the Navy in 1951 as a Seabee.
Man, there's so many connections.
I know,
to
right?
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if this episode was actually shot first, this segment. Anyway, but he retired from the Marines in 1975.
Can you switch?
I'd see switch, dude. And he had his second career as a magazine editor for like Gun World, Bow and Arrow. Oh, what did I write here? Bow and Arrow Hunting and Horse and Horseman. So he had a full life.
That's such a specific clientele of magazine reader there.
Well, it said he started his second career, so this guy was ready to go.
Wow. So Roger is what we would say like he's probably in that second career at this point when he's here because they don't say he's even currently anything in the Marines.
Right.
Here, I guess he just I don't know. Who knows the connection? Unfortunately, we can't ask him, but he gave some interesting statistics that as the camp needed to be, because like I said, this happened pretty quick. They had to put this whole camp together in a week, like a week's time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they had to house 15,000 people, like right off the bat.
And what does Huell say? Sounds like you got a logistics problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's like what would you say, like the population of Delano showing up in a day?
Yep.
I guess they were being greyhounded down. I don't know where they came, like as far as like being, I think they came on a lot of boats and planes and stuff. But they eventually processed 53,000 refugees over a 7 to 8 month period. So this wasn't like a long, drawn out process. It's like, we get you here, feed you, get you set up with whatever. I don't know the refugee system.
Right.
At least back then. It got to be set up with some sort of social service of some sort, I'm sure. So,
well, the trippy part about it, I guess I could mention this as well, is we talked to our first lady, white shirt lady. We don't get a name.
Yeah, so few names here.
I put white shirt, soft-spoken lady.
Yeah.
The trippy part is, okay, it's sort of like Manzanar. Not in the sense that people were in internment camp. Mm-hmm. This is the opposite of that, really. But it's totally gone. There's really nothing there, right?
True, yeah.
There's one monument, and you went to Manzanar fairly recently. Mm-hmm. Is it that one monument?
There's a monument, but there is the whole rec center that
Right.
they made into the museum, which nothing like that exists here.
Right.
But in the fact that all of the tents and the housing and the facilities, yeah, it's empty field again.
Okay. So we talked to soft-spoken lady, and then young guy, who was, how old was he? 7 months?
7 months old.
Okay. So the camp was only around
as long as,
as long
he was alive.
Double his life. It was already over. So I thought what was funny is the first two people, it's like, I don't really know. I don't remember.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to Salmon Lady.
Salmon shirt.
Salmon yes,
colored
I
shirt.
should say.
Oh, man.
And what do we got? We got Salmon Shirt Lady.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have... Well, she actually was the one that I thought was interesting. She said that it feels like a campsite now. And I think that captures it exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And Huell said, well, it kind of was. Because they were intense. But, like, when you see... It's funny that they're intercutting with lots of stock footage of the time.
Right.
My favorite being the sick Foursquare game that they had going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those kids were I don't think they were having too bad a time if they're blasting out Foursquare shots like that.
That's true. I never really played Foursquare.
What?
I know. And whatever.
Okay. First huge aside.
Easy. Tetherball.
Okay. I guess you went to the same elementary school your entire career, right?
Yeah.
I did not. So every time I switched 3 different times, every time it was kind of like I came in, I made new friends, whatever they were doing. Mm-hmm. So like first run of school, soccer, every single bit of the day. Then I switched. It went to tetherball, 5th grade, William Penn Elementary School. There was this tetherball king there who had, it's still the sickest thing ever. He had a fanny pack, but the fanny pack had a picture of the WWF championship belt on the fanny part of it. Uh-huh. So it was like he had the belt, but it was a fanny pack. And he was just like, wapa, wapa, just the king.
Wearing a fanny pack playing?
Yeah.
It's an animal.
He would have it in the front, but when he played, he would switch it to the back.
Of course.
He would fanny it.
Okay, so I jumped the gun there. Definitely tetherball was the number one.
Okay.
Also played football and soccer, which is normal.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this position for student body. Okay. I was the ballroom manager in 4th and 5th grade.
I've heard you say this many times.
I literally managed the checkout of tether balls, soccer balls, footballs, all that. Okay.
I always thought at my school, I thought that was like a punishment that you had to do that instead of like be at recess.
No, I definitely got voted for, So
why you, I wonder?
Well, there was only 2 of us that ran.
Who was the
Someone
other
had
kid
to win. No.
Oh man.
No. But I had to give a speech, and everyone
His life
talks
is in
about
shambles.
soda coming out of the water fountains and
Of course,
everything. Whatever's dumb. But towards the end there, yo-yos.
Oh yes,
dude, they were fire.
Oh man,
for
the
sure.
Yo-yo trip of like 97.
And what ended up
96.
happening is that same tetherball pit. I'm going to call it that because that sounds way cooler. We were just 6 people, yo-yos. That was it.
Okay.
There's no more tetherball happening.
Sorry, folks. I gotta interject a little bit here too. The yo-yo fad of like 96, 97. I got into it too. I got one at remember the Natural Wonder store at the mall? Yeah, bought one there. It was like a $25 one. It's not bad.
$25. We did to our parents.
I know, right? So I'm just yoing down the street. I was walking by my elementary school like on a Sunday just because I was bored. And I'm just yoing down the street trying to do stupid stuff. And this kid, I see him coming like from way up the street. And I can just tell he's going to talk to me. And I'm all nervous. And he comes up and he's like, hey, you like yo-yos too? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, I love it. And I was like, he's like, what tricks do you know? And I was like, oh, rock the cradle, kind of
around the world.
Yeah, the most basic
Walk
ones.
the dog.
And then he's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. I won like the state yo-yo championships this year.
Come on.
I'm like, bro, yeah, right. And he's like, oh well, the trophy they give you is a gold yo-yo. I got it with me. Fool pulls out an engraved golden yo-yo with his name on it, ready to go. He just started yelling, just whoopah, whoopah, just throwing them out so hard. And then I'd never seen him in the
you got
neighborhood
verification
before.
that he could do tricks. No, that he could do
Oh,
some
yeah.
tricks. It wasn't just check out this yo-yo my mom had
Made for
made
me.
for me.
No. Like he wasn't, I mean, he's also 11 years old. So he wasn't doing anything like super wild.
Yeah.
I wonder
Dude,
if,
Rock the Cradle was so cool, though.
I know. I can still do it, by the way. No big deal, but whatever. I wonder if the kids at the camp here, at Camp Pendleton, were also yo-yoing a little bit.
I'm going to go with a hard no. They were playing hopscotch.
Whatever, dude.
Foursquare.
I don't want to, we're kind of making light of this whole thing, but it did seem like this wasn't the funnest of times for a lot of these people. because
the sad lady.
Yeah, like bright pink shirt, highlighter pink shirt lady. She kind of gets into it how it was really not very fun. She cried herself to sleep every night for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like,
and her voice is sort of trembling. I don't know, she could be nervous as well, but
true.
But just before her, we get the guy who was 14 years old when he was brought to the camp, and he has an interesting tidbit, and that's if you woke up late, you'd get a cold shower. And then we get Huell.
Yep.
So this is what made me think that, maybe it is before. Maybe this is truly the first time he talks about being in the Marine Corps. Because
he didn't fully admit it, like in this one. That's
true.
That's how I counted it. But
you wouldn't know that he was if he didn't have the prior knowledge of him being in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he just said, "Oh man, that's like." Wait, did he say?
Sounds like being in the
that's like
Marines
being
to
in the
me.
Marine Corps. Yeah, sorry, I wrote my notes down like he actually said it explicitly, but he didn't. So, anyways, I'm kind of holding on to that this segment was probably shot before.
I'd go with that. There's the other guy. Was it the same guy who said that his dad actually had wanted to go to France because that's where he had gotten his degree?
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of ties into a little bit. You would think like France, really? That's odd. But if you go deep into the Vietnam history, as far as the war goes and everything, which again I only know this because of Ken Burns. Thanks, Kenny. France was the first country to colonize Vietnam, and they influenced so much of the kind of assimilation into Western culture that Vietnam had. Because if you look at what's now Ho Chi Minh City, now it's like this big, like nice French European-looking city. At least it was prior to the Civil War brought on by the influence of communism from the North. So I'm guessing that this guy's dad had gone to France during those colonial days. Because, I mean, the colonial stuff really kind of faltered as far as France's ability to keep their colonies well supplied in some of the ways that they needed to be supplied. And that's just weird that there's even that little taste of colonialism even here in 1995 on California's Gold.
Right.
Colonialism wasn't that long ago, I guess, is the real thing. And then...
You think spreading democracy is neocolonialism?
Do we have 13 hours to talk about that? One thing that was spread was some hope here.
That's
like
right.
That segue.
That's right.
There's a statue that was built because I think it was soft shirt lady or soft voice white shirt lady, not soft shirt. I don't know how soft your shirt was.
I don't know.
She said that they knew that they weren't going to be here for very long, and they wanted to leave a lasting impression, so they had this large hand sculpture built, and it's still there today.
There's not much more than that, too. It was this is a monument to show our appreciation for the USA's help.
Yep.
And I said, okay. So,
and then they
move
on.
Move to the next thing, yeah.
And it's funny because then we get to interview a little bit with the soldier who's there, whose name we don't get. And he mentions the Quonset huts that some of them were housed in. Like, those are for sure the same Quonsets that we saw 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it looks like the same exact area. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same day.
We need to check the shirts.
We need to check the shirts. Should we check it real quick?
Let's check it real quick.
This is amazing.
Oh, this is for sure. Like, it's so obviously the same day that because Huell's microphone is a wireless unit, but the mic goes from a wire to a battery transmitter pack in his back pocket. It's like the wire is tucked the same exact way.
You have it up side by side. It is so the same day.
But it's funny that there's a bunch of different people. Like, he did, it didn't. The soldiers are different, even though they're dressed exactly the same. Obviously, they're soldiers in uniforms.
But the same, I know what you mean, the same rolled up sleeves and everything.
Yeah.
The rock and the same look. So this is what leads me to believe, and I know this is such a minor, if it is right, such a minor victory, it doesn't even matter. But I feel like if he would have mentioned the Quonset huts,
Yeah.
that he would have said, "Oh yeah, just we're over there checking it out. Pretty cool, huh?"
He
Like, I
wouldn't
feel
have
like-
even needed to put any sort of timestamp on it because he probably didn't know when the episodes would air.
True.
He could have just said, "Oh yeah, we were checking those out." I thought of that, but wouldn't that then mess up a timeline if the Hudson Hangers had aired later?
Yes.
Or would it really matter? Like he doesn't
I don't
seem
know.
like the type.
Maybe he's a pro. He's like, yeah, I'm not gonna. You know what I mean?
Or-
Like, not tie these.
Okay, let's throw it this far down the line. What if this soldier, nameless soldier, says, "Oh, they were staying over in the Quonsets," and in Huell's head, he's thinking, "Quonsets, man, maybe I should look into those huts," and that just started that whole episode, like this moment right here. Because if you look, he's like looking off into the distance at about 9 minutes in.
So, yeah, I'm doing an episode.
His
on
mind's out there in the Quonsets.
those. I need to wear the same clothes.
I definitely don't need to change. Oh man. What else do we have here? There's not a whole lot more, right?
Well, there's something that. Who is it that says it at the end? Well, sort of. He talks about. Huell says something funny. We're like, "Oh, there's nothing, no trace of it here." He's like, "Well, time moves on."
Yeah.
So he transitions to that. And then I think it's soft shirt or quiet shirt lady.
Quiet. Her shirt is quiet.
But she has no. Who is it? It's maybe it was the lady who they were talking to. No,
It's her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quiet shirt lady. So she said something that the future was so uncertain we could make anything out of it.
That's poetic.
That's poetic. That's a positive outlook, and that's kind of how we end this segment.
And that I want to put a whole blanket over that because a lot of we're not saying so much about what they're saying, but there seemed to be a lot of that kind of optimism despite the sadness that they were driven out of their own country. That like, hey, well, at least we're in America. Like, we can be anything here. And then the soldier has that line where he said, because Huell mentions like, oh, it's all overgrown now. And there's a bunch of trees, and he's like, "Oh yes, just like these were saplings when these people were just kids. Now they've grown just like the saplings and made themselves tall and strong."
There you go.
Like, everyone is getting real poetic in this segment here.
And it's just funny if they didn't show anything from those, just the videos that they were showing of the camp when it was active.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't see any of those, you really got to use your imagination. Like,
Totally.
Oh yeah,
Because it is just a big dirt lot.
yeah, it is.
But I think they were really feeling super sentimental because if you look at the No Name Soldier, there's a point at about 10 minutes where obviously what was his name? Roger Combs said something that kind of sparked a memory. You see him look at him, and they just gives him the pat on the back like, "It's okay, brother. We made it." And then Salmon Shirt is just kind of not really into it. She's fine, but
Yeah.
I don't think she's into the conversation.
You got
at
young
hand.
boy over here leading the pack. Also not as interested, but
No.
that's okay.
It's cool.
He's part of history.
You darn tootin'. So, yeah, that's the end of the first important place. We need
What's the next one?
to head up north a little bit. Let's let Huell tell us.
Yeah, we sanu sa hande.
They were established back at the turn of the century, schools for Indians that were financed and run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now, the idea back in the early days was to take young Indian boys and girls off the reservations, put them in these special schools, and Americanize them. They lived in dormitories and were required to wear uniforms and march to and from class. They had vocational classes to learn a trade, and there were special horticulture classes as well, and PE activities teaching the kids basketball and baseball. This remarkable film was shot back in 1915 and captures what life was like at one of those schools, the Sherman Institute in Riverside, California. And today, almost 100 years after it was founded, the Sherman Institute, now named the Sherman Indian High School, is still located in Riverside, still funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now these days, the All-Indian Boarding School has 445 students, grades 9 through 12, coming from 15 different states and representing 70 tribes. Physically, the school has changed a lot. Originally, it sat on an 800-acre campus with some beautiful buildings representing an old-style architecture. Well, these days, the campus buildings are modern, but everybody at the school, administrators, faculty, staff, and students, are very much aware of its rich history.
So, Sherman Indian High School.
Riverside, California.
Riverside.
Home of one of our favorite coffee shops. Not our, as in
You and I?
you and I.
Yeah. The
But-
other hour, you
Yeah.
and Kathleen?
Yeah.
The
So-
one that exists everywhere else but this show? Well, she was on the show.
She was on the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we've had either of them on. We got to get them in here.
It's true.
Because we talk about their stories so much and places they've been. To be honest, they're not like huge fans of being on the show, it doesn't seem. But
Yeah.
plus we record when they're at work.
But she's from Riverside County,
Yeah.
which does stretch to the border of Nevada.
But I mean, it is. Do any other counties stretch from the Pacific?
San Bernardino.
Oh, okay, true.
Yeah. I think, well, yeah, Riverside does too. Yeah. Well, I think San Bernardino is is the biggest county.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
So I'm assuming you've never heard of this. I had never heard of it.
No, never.
I've heard of things like this. More so like in the clip you heard about how the Sherman Institute was founded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs back in the 1800s, early 1900s. That's like there was a lot of assimilation schools that existed in the country, but specifically California, because California had a very large Native American population. Despite this being the thing that it was set up where tribes from all over the West were coming here. But have you, like, I know I'm more the Native American guy. No, I'm not personally Native American, but I study it. Have you heard of or like read much into the whole like assimilation thing that happened for a long, long time?
No, I knew a person, though, that wrote their senior paper on looking through textbooks and seeing their different... I'm not going to butcher it. What did you do?
It's sort of similar to that. It was me that he's trying to...
I couldn't remember exactly.
It was about how the California mission system was taught to public school kids throughout history. I mean, I couldn't keep it to just public school kids. It ended up just being how history kind of saw the missions as far as like being such a good thing or a bad thing, or like just I went into it in depth, but it kind of paralleled what you saw happen at the Sherman Institute turning into the Sherman Indian High School, where Americanization of Native Americans was the original focus, and then it just became more about letting them celebrate and almost enhance their cultural differences outside of American culture.
Right. That's one of the interesting things because I don't know much about this, and maybe this is too off topic, but why didn't I guess it wouldn't really be a Bureau of Indian Affairs anymore. They just gave them the land and let them do what they want with it.
Like the, what do you mean, like reservations and
Yeah,
stuff?
like reservations. Like if, instead of granting monopolies in certain industries, what if you just let people buy and sell the land as they please? Like why was it this whole thing of, I mean, like I said, it's a very deep topic, but we could do a whole different thing on it. But something I've always thought was interesting. It's like, oh, well, here's your land, but you can't do anything with it.
It's very weird how the government, even more recently, they just can't fully just do the right thing when it comes to Native Americans. Like, obviously, we kind of like us being two, Anglo dudes sitting here talking about
I'm
this.
part Choctaw, so I don't know what you're talking about.
How much, though? You got your 23andMe?
Not a whole lot. Like,
okay. You're going to leave it at that?
I'm not one. What was Elizabeth Warren?
Dude, I don't know.
More than
I don't know. Oh, man.
That was a joke, by the way.
But even this school here, because part of what you heard in the clip, it was just a quick little thing that Huell said, where he said that the old-style buildings were so great and everything, and now it looks all modern. Well, I looked into that, and the buildings were not fit, like, seismically. Like, they needed to be...
I see.
I guess they couldn't have been retrofitted because they had to just demolish everything and start anew. So the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who is in charge of this and must kind of own the land, because it's not actually like a reservation per se. Like it is a boarding school that kids from reservations can come to.
But it's a boarding school that's financed by the BIA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no... Okay.
So they deemed the buildings unfit and said that they needed to be rebuilt. And then they made I think it was like a coalition of California tribes. They had to pay for them to be demolished and rebuilt.
Oh, so they made the decision, but put the cost on...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah. That's like those little things where it's just like...
Why? Yeah.
Bro.
Seriously? So, when I was looking at the history of the school, because even on Chapman's website, it's called the Sherman Institute High School, which even before then, though, if this is right, then it was Paris Indian School in Paris, California.
Yeah.
In 1892, or I think 92 or 93, and then
they moved it.
Then they moved it to Riverside. Then it became the Sherman Institute High School. And then during accreditation, they switched it to Sherman Indian High School.
Yeah.
Officially. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to get that straight.
The nomenclature. It's weird how much has changed over the course of this high school because it has been in existence for so long. Well, one thing that hasn't changed is that we got old Laureen Sisquak, who is the... What was her title? I missed it.
I missed it too.
She is I think the curator of the Sherman Indian Museum.
Let's pull up her LinkedIn.
Oh, I already did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
At this time in 1995, she is the curator of the museum because the museum is on the school grounds. Because you heard in the clip, the school used to be huge, or at least the school grounds. Now it's a lot smaller, but there's tons of artifacts from the school's history that they were able to create a whole museum. And she has been the curator of that museum for 36 years.
Jeez.
Since 86. She still is to this day. She's got a couple other jobs. Did you get more?
Yeah, she's an instructor at UC Riverside's Extension Campus.
Yeah. This lady is...
She's doing it. I mean, yeah, she teaches native plants of California.
Mm-hmm. Man, I would take that class. I would so take that class.
She, what else was there? Oh, Huell called her the official and the unofficial historian.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means, but I just called her a de facto historian
Yeah.
of the area. Just okay. That's you. Let's see. So I did look up what's it called? Sherman Indian
High school. Yeah.
So shiz.
Yeah.
It's still open.
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
Did you go to like their school website?
Yeah,
and saw
it's not the well. School websites aren't the greatest anyway.
No.
So,
I mean,
but
there
there
was
was
like
some
400 kids there too,
Yeah,
so
and
it's a small school.
there was some controversy as well. Did you read about this in the 2008?
Oh, when
during
they
the
like
financial
laid off
crisis?
a bunch of people?
Yeah, super bummer. It turns out when you're a government agency, like the money isn't earmarked.
Yeah.
So
Because they're not getting the same kind of school funding that American California public schools get. Like it's a
Right.
whole different system here.
yeah,
Even though they are accredited, it's as far as where the money comes from. So they were more susceptible to the recession.
and if there ever is a recession again, if it's soon, it's
Yeah.
something to keep an eye on as well.
So we go into the museum. We see a little bit of what's in there. We meet Amelia Rivera, who is a former student and also seems to like volunteer there, right?
Yeah, she's like the president of the Alumni Association.
That's what it
as
was,
well.
yeah. So obviously the people who live in the area and went to the school feel real strongly about the positive nature of it, because I don't think there's been a lot of assimilation happening for decades. Like that's not what it's about. But they're very conscious of that fact, like that was what this was meant to be, to Americanize Native American children, and then flippity flop, psych, it's all about you now.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, what is their curriculum like? Is it just like public schools, but it's funded through the Bureau of Indian Affairs?
Well, it's okay. So when I went on their website, they have a newsletter, and I read last month's newsletter, and it seems very similar to a lot of because there's not so much they don't exist here so much, but kind of like more technical high schools, meaning like a lot of emphasis on science, engineering, math, stuff like that.
Right.
But there was also a lot of like focus on art. As far as the newsletter, I didn't see any curriculums. I kind of wish I could. But they're all up in getting these kids to learn about it's not so much of an academically based school, I think. That's my opinion.
Okay.
My impression. And who else do we meet? We met a lot of people.
I met Don Sims,
Oh, the principal, yeah.
a.k.a. the Six Flag guy.
God. But he's like 6'10" though, instead of 4'2". Oh man. But he kind of described, and then we see some stock footage of when this was more of like a vocational type school back in the 50s, 60s. It looks based on the footage, since it's color footage and the kind of stuff they're doing.
I mean, it was called ROP here.
True.
So,
Did you do that?
yeah. Well, no, I didn't.
Okay. I signed up for it senior year,
That's exactly what happened to me.
and then I missed the bus, quote unquote.
Oh, you dished. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I definitely signed up for the auto body repair.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, I don't know about this. I think I like engines. And that was it.
That kind of set you on that section of your life.
And I also had to take junior and senior English my senior year.
Okay.
So,
High school is so sketchy
dude,
sometimes.
Junior year was a rough year.
Okay.
Let's just say that too much skateboarding.
So, Huell, I think he gets a lot of flack. In fact, I want to bring this up because it's kind of a weird thing. I saw a little bit of Twitter controversy this week when Rick Steves, who's also part of the like public television kind of weirdo alumni that we were talking about,
we forgot
with
to mention
Chaz.
him, huh?
He's not as weird. That's the thing. Like he sounds weird, but he's almost weird because he's so normal to me.
Yeah, but isn't he into like liberation theology?
Oh, I don't know
Stuff
about
like that. Yeah.
No, I just know he likes to go to Europe. No, he tweeted some political tweet.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people were not too happy with it.
Well, do you remember like the general?
Yeah, I'm sure it had something to do with Trump. I don't remember.
Okay.
But either way, the only reason I saw it is because a lot of people were saying like Huell Hauser would never do this kind of a thing, and they ain't wrong. Like Huell definitely kept his opinions to himself a lot of times, but it's fun to do this because we've done this with professors of ours when we were in college, undergrad, grad school, everything, where you try and guess like where do they sit on issues, because some professors are like way too out there, and then it's almost annoying. It's like you feel the biasness coming out of them,
Right.
and it affects things. Huell, I think, lets a little bit out in here when he's talking to Don Sims about the the assimilation era of the high school, because Huell says I forget the exact wording, but he says something along the lines of like, well, how do you feel about the history of this place? How like cutting their hair and making them wear uniforms and de-Indianing the Indian, as he said, like,
Yeah.
what was that for? That was to do what? And almost like the sound in his voice is like,
It's like the only hint of combativeness
yeah,
that you get from Because I mean, it's not like the guy's having to defend it, right?
No.
This is the new iteration of the school. So,
totally. And like Huell is on the right track, because that was, as Don Sims said earlier in that little tidbit of the interview, that was the prevailing theory of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, was relocation, assimilation. That's it. Like, we don't care about their culture as a whole. Maybe there were individuals who saw value in it and maybe weren't trying to like throw money at enriching it. Mm-hmm. Like even our local homeboy Edward Beale, who was the head of Indian Affairs in California for a while. He, when I did a research paper on him, he definitely had a softer tone as far as like how useful or useless Indian Native American culture was to, as far as the viewpoint of the U.S. government. He was far from the best, you know. But.
Right. But I mean, to not be anachronistic, right? Like,
yeah,
it was relative progress, though, right? Would you say in your paper? Is that what you found?
Yeah, and he was only head of the bureau for a short time, but it seems like there was a trend amongst those maybe in the lower levels of the government who were actually like on the ground seeing what was happening, and that probably led to things like the total kind of 180 that happened at places like the Sherman Institute, because the fact that this place still exists is pretty crazy.
It's true. Yeah. I mean,
it's a boarding school. It doesn't necessarily need to exist. It's an enrichment.
That's true.
Thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting how even institutionally it can evolve, right? 'Cause the Bureau of Indian Affairs could just cut its funds this place, but
like
it
tomorrow
chose not to, right?
Yeah.
It's still funding it. But what I thought was interesting, it was Don Sims, the principal. He was talking about that it was founded as a trade school, which we saw in the videos.
Yeah.
But it changed to a comprehensive high school for its Western Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation.
Yeah.
And then they changed the name with that too. So I thought it was interesting that there was a shift in the nature of the school, but I don't know.
Well, Huell wouldn't do us a good service if he didn't go in and talk to some students and teachers, not just the administrator. And that's exactly what he did. He went. We don't get a lot of names, unfortunately.
Approximately 0. Besides Don Sims.
Weird though, we do get names of teachers, just not students.
That's true. Yeah.
So much. But it's not much different than any other kind of high schooler being interviewed by a weird dude with a microphone necessarily.
But that guy, dude.
The guy with the long hair out front.
Yeah, cool guy.
Yeah,
He would be in a Disney movie. For sure.
he does look
From
like
that era.
he's got that strong jawline of like a Disney animated character. Is that what you're going at?
Yeah, the cool parted hair, strong
flowing.
jawline. Oh,
yeah. He's got a Sean Hunter.
Yeah.
Feel
Or
to
like
it.
if he was in Brink.
Dude,
like-
yeah. I'm sure he's had some rollerblades on. That guy definitely has worn some rollerblades. But one of the teachers that we do get a name on is old Tara Charlie Bogus? Bogus? What do you think that's? Baugus? Bagus?
Yeah.
Okay. She's a history teacher and former student. Again, like keeping it in the family.
This is like all the private schools. When you start looking at the teachers,
True.
they all graduate from there.
Homegirl Tara still teaching there to this day.
Is she really?
She sure is.
That's awesome.
I looked up the faculty phone list. She was on it. Yeah, she doesn't have a ton to say in the episode, but it's just interesting that this place really holds on to its faculty because they were former students. And what do you think of this guest shirt that we got at 22 minutes?
Is this like the burglar tee?
Kind of. But like this girl right here, wouldn't you see her like any like you can see her anywhere in town these days right now?
Yeah,
dressed
it
that way.
reminds me of some of the girls when we were going to. Really, it was more in middle school for me when people would take pictures at the mall.
Oh,
and it had
the image shots.
Yeah, like the,
Totally.
the laugh now, cry later backgrounds.
Totally, yeah. I've always wondered if that existed outside. It must have. Like, I don't think Bakersfield.
I feel like it
invented
did.
The image shots. And to explain what it is, it's like these little what were they like 3x5, almost baseball card size photos that mostly girls, but definitely not exclusively girls, would get taken of themselves in front of like a backdrop that kind of like looked airbrushed, and it was like a soft focus, and it's like it was a rite of passage.
Oh yeah, and you chose the person that you wanted to give your picture to, and then people with the clear binders would have the pictures.
Yeah,
dude.
And you'd like you would sign it on the back, like
Yeah.
yearbook style, write a
Like,
little thing.
To let the. That I'm dead serious. Like if
KIT.
yeah, that's so true. It's actually a real.
Yeah, and
Real picture.
I mean, I've known girls that have like kept these, and it was funny because us as boys, like we collected cards of, like I collected Marvel cards. I wasn't so much into baseball cards or anything like that, but Marvel cards. Girls collected these, and they were like a badge of honor to have a bunch of image shots, pictures.
Mm-hmm.
They still keep them.
That's funny, dude. Yeah, this brings back memories.
Yeah.
Well, because I do wonder on the west side if this happened though, because you went to school on the south side,
Yeah.
which is distinct. I went to school on
True.
the east side,
Yeah.
which is distinct as well.
Yeah. Similar but different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't think kids on the west side were doing this.
I don't think as much, but I have seen my stepsister did get one of these done. But okay, so I guess we should throw this in there too. Like it seemed to be more predominant. Maybe it's just because of where we grew up that it was more of a thing that like a lot of Mexican girls did this, and it felt like back then that there were a number, at least in my school, I'll speak for my school, a lot of the white girls really wish they weren't white. You know what I mean? So it was funny that a lot of the girls that I did see who had these still had the kind of like the bangs that we were referencing in the girl in the guest shirt and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, I tried to fit in too. I had my slick back hair in 6th grade.
Dude.
Oh, man.
That was a weird time.
Did any girl ever ask you to do the image shot with them?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No.
I didn't have girlfriends back then. Where were we?
Well, no, I'd say 6th grade was the year. It was my first time going to a different school, obviously from elementary school.
Yeah.
K through 5 there. Went in, the barber cut my sideburn off. So it, like an old man, was to the top of my ear.
Yeah.
Dude.
Just butchered
Ruined
you?
my 3 years there, yeah.
So, similar story. I had pretty much the same haircut from, I would say, 3rd grade to middle of 8th grade, which was just, I would go in, I'd say, give me the surfer cut. Simple as that.
Yep.
Now, it went from being something that I would comb, like a side, comb to the side thing, where I had a part on my left side, to being a straight down the middle part, Sean Hunter style.
That's hardcore,
Boy Meets
dude.
World. To a slicked back. Like, I had 3 different iterations of it. Then after that, I wanted to, like, mix it up. And so my mom, like, was looking at the things in the books, the books that were always out at the barbershop. And she's like, what about that one? I was like, I guess, I don't know. And obviously the girl who cut my hair had never done that cut. Because she shlamied me.
Dude.
And I go to school, and my friend Javon is like, oh, Chris, you got a new haircut. Oh, they didn't finish it, huh? And, like, he wasn't joking. And I was just like, yeah, I got to go back today.
Oh, okay. Right in the middle, they stopped, huh?
Like, that's ever happened. Oh, Javon got me that day.
Dude, that's good. That's good stuff. Man, speaking of Sean Hunter,
Yeah.
Boy Meets World, Eric Matthews is the reason I grew out my hair.
Is it?
Yeah.
You didn't?
It turns out my hair is nothing like his. It's straight. It doesn't lay the same way.
No, you do
It's
have
being
that.
curly.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
So that kind of wraps it up, our big aside on image shots and stuff, because it reminded us of high school, and this is what this is all about, is regardless of all these kids being from Utah or Arizona or Oregon or wherever, like, they're still in high school.
Yeah.
And you can tell they were still, like, probably dealing with high school stuff.
Although the ASB president, student body president, I don't have to call it ASB there.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
She looked like she was about 24 years old.
That was,
She
yeah.
looked a little older, but it could have it could be the case. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Does that wrap us up?
yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Unless you want to comment on that girl next to the girl we were talking about in the guest Hamburglar t-shirt.
Oh. With the Dallas Cowboys shirt on?
Dallas Cowboys shirt.
That was so fresh and clean,
It
too.
was, dude.
If
It was.
if some vintage clothier were to find that now
She.
in that pristine shape,
I wonder if she's still a fan, and if she was super disappointed last week, and they got schlamied.
oh man.
Either way, who's taking us away here? What is this?
Oh, old Bill Neal.
Beal Neal?
Beal Neal. Yeah, Bill Neal is playing the flute that you will hear at the end of this episode. The song is called Elk Whistle. And this is a shot right here. Like, Louis got the flowing shadows of the leaves over top. Like, this could not have been better. Louis' top form here.
Oh yeah, and you said it's Elk Speaks.
Elk Whistle.
Oh,
You're thinking of Black Elk Speaks,
Black
the
Elk
kid's
Speaks?
shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So that's what you're going to hear for a little bit, and then, California's goal. California, Here I Come. We can't let you out of this episode without hearing it at least once. So, where are we going next week?
Going a few places.
Yeah, we are.
La Brea Tar Pits.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to the Presidio of San Diego to see the excavation of the first European settlement in California.
It's funny because we're just giving it all away there. Because the episode is called Hidden Gold. And Huell's super secretive in his intro. He loves doing that. We talk about him doing that a lot. But it's funny. We'll tell you about it next week. It's a good one. Just you wait.
Yeah.
But until then, we hope that you come along with us next week and every week as we continue our search for
Huell's Gold.